are you gonna pay or not? We really need to keep this line moving.
Ma'am, you need to leave right now. We don't tolerate that here. Put that back on the shelf, do you hear me?
You didn't have to do that. You don't even know who I am. A stranger had no reason to spend money on me.
I knew you were hungry. I know that nobody should have to feel ashamed because they forgot their wallet at home.
What is your name?
Hannah Sullivan.
Hannah Sullivan. I will never forget that name.
She had $12 in her pocket. It was supposed to last her the entire week. She did not know, standing in that checkout line, that the next 90 seconds of her life would be recorded by a store camera, replayed in a courtroom 2 years later, and quoted in a Senate hearing on corporate ethics. She only knew one thing. An old woman was being humiliated in front of a line of strangers, and she had $12. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Hannah Sullivan was 29 years old, and by every measure that mattered to the outside world, she was invisible. She cleaned floors at a grocery store called Harmon Foods, starting her shift at 5 in the morning, long before the first customer walked through the automatic doors. She had a degree in business administration that she had never used, because 2 years earlier her mother, Carol Sullivan, had been diagnosed with a heart condition that required medication Hannah could barely afford. Hannah told no one at work about her mother. She kept her head down, mopped the floors, restocked the shelves no one wanted to restock, and counted the days until payday like a woman counting down to parole. She was, in every visible sense, unremarkable. That was about to change. Every morning before her shift, Hannah counted the money in her wallet twice. Not because she had forgotten how much was there. She counted it because counting it made her feel, for just a moment, like she had some measure of control over a life that offered her very little. $12. Enough for a loaf of bread, a carton of eggs, and bus fare home. Not enough for anything else. Not enough for the medication refill due in 4 days. She had already decided she would skip a meal to cover the difference. She had done it before. She would do it again. She did not know that morning that her $12 would soon belong to someone else entirely, and that the decision to give it away would be the most important financial decision of her life. It was a Tuesday, the kind of gray, forgettable Tuesday that no one remembers until, years later, they realize it was the day everything changed. An elderly woman stood at register 4, her hands trembling slightly as she searched through a handbag that clearly did not contain what she was looking for. Her name, though no one in that line knew it yet, was Eleanor Whitfield. She was 78 years old. She was, at that exact moment, worth an estimated $400 million. And she could not find her wallet. The cashier, a young man barely out of high school, watched Eleanor search with visible impatience. Behind her, a line of customers began to grow restless, shifting their weight, sighing audibly, checking their phones. Eleanor apologized softly, said she must have left her wallet at home, and asked for just a moment to sort it out. The cashier told her he had already given her 3 minutes. He told her, in front of everyone, that if she could not pay, she needed to step aside. The store manager, a heavy-set man named Robert Doyle, arrived within the minute, drawn by the commotion. Robert did not ask what was wrong. He assumed, the way certain men in certain positions of small power often assume, that the elderly woman was attempting to steal. He told her, loudly enough for the entire front of the store to hear, that she was wasting everyone's time. A woman near the back of the line muttered that Eleanor probably could not pay because she was trying to get something for free. Eleanor said nothing. She simply stood there, 78 years old, holding a single loaf of bread, being humiliated in front of strangers for the crime of forgetting a wallet. Hannah Sullivan was mopping an aisle less than 20 feet away. She had heard the entire exchange. She had watched Robert's face twist into something close to cruelty, watched the line of customers do nothing, watched an old woman's hands begin to shake harder. Hannah set her mop against a shelf. She reached into her back pocket. She had $12, and she was about to make a decision that Robert Doyle, in all his small authority, could never have predicted. "How much is the bread?" Hannah asked. The cashier, startled, told her it was $3.50. Hannah did not hesitate. She placed the money on the counter and told him to ring it up. Eleanor turned to look at her, confused, and asked if she was certain. Hannah told her she was. Eleanor said something Hannah would remember for the rest of her life, that Hannah did not even know her, that a stranger had no reason to spend her own money on someone she had never met. Hannah told her the truth. She said she knew Eleanor was hungry. She said she knew that nobody should have to feel ashamed because they forgot their wallet at home. It was a small sentence. It cost Hannah nothing to say and $3.50 to prove. But Eleanor Whitfield, a woman who had built an empire and buried a husband and outlived most of her closest friends, would later say that no one had spoken to her with that much plain, unguarded kindness in over a decade. Eleanor asked for her name. Hannah told her. Eleanor repeated it back, slowly, as though committing it to memory in a way that mattered. "Hannah Sullivan," she said. "I will never forget that name." She did not know, in that moment, how true those words would become. Kindness, in most versions of this world, goes unpunished quietly and unrewarded just as quietly. It simply passes, unnoticed, and life continues. That is not what happened to Hannah Sullivan. 2 days after she paid for Eleanor Whitfield's bread, she was called into Robert Doyle's office. She assumed it was about her schedule. It was not. Robert told her, without meeting her eyes, that she had interfered with a customer transaction. He told her she had inserted herself into a situation that was none of her business and used her position as an employee to override a management decision. He called it grandstanding. He handed her a notice of indefinite suspension, effective immediately, and told her she could collect her final check on Friday. Hannah asked him, her voice steady even as her hands were not, whether he understood what he had actually witnessed that day. An elderly woman humiliated in public over $3.50. Robert told her that being human was not written anywhere in the employee handbook. He said he liked her. He said she was a good worker. He said the rules were the rules. Hannah mentioned her mother. She mentioned the medication. Robert's expression did not change. The decision, he told her, was final. Charlotte Hale noticed her mother's silence before she noticed anything else. Charlotte ran Whitfield Holdings, one of the largest privately held development companies in the country, and she had never once seen her mother distracted at the breakfast table. When she asked what was wrong, Eleanor told her about the grocery store, about the register, about being humiliated in front of strangers while a line of people watched and did nothing. And then she told Charlotte about the janitor with $12 in her pocket, who had given away everything she had to a woman she had never met and expected absolutely nothing in return. Charlotte assumed, at first, that her mother wanted to write a check and consider the matter closed. Eleanor corrected her immediately. She said that a young woman who gives away her last money to a stranger, without hesitation and without expectation, is not a person you thank with a check. She is a person you find. Eleanor wanted Hannah Sullivan located properly and thanked in a way that actually meant something. It took Charlotte's assistant less than a day to find her. Hannah Sullivan had no idea that a black car was already on its way to her apartment, or that her life, quietly and without warning, was about to be rewritten. Hannah opened the door expecting a neighbor. Instead, she found Eleanor Whitfield standing on her doorstep, alongside a younger woman Hannah did not recognize, but somehow felt she should. Eleanor introduced herself properly this time, and introduced her daughter, Charlotte Hale. Hannah, confused and slightly embarrassed by the state of her apartment, stammered that she had only bought a loaf of bread, that it was nothing, that she hoped she hadn't caused any trouble. Eleanor told her the opposite was true. She said that loaf of bread was the most expensive meal anyone had bought her in years, because it had cost Hannah everything she had. She told Hannah she understood she had been suspended from her job for helping her. Hannah confirmed it, quietly, without asking for sympathy. Eleanor said something then that Hannah would repeat for the rest of her life in interviews, in speeches, in quiet moments with her own mother. She said skills can be taught, but the kind of integrity that makes a person give away her last $12 to a stranger, that cannot be taught. It is either in a person or it is not. She offered Hannah a position as a management trainee inside the Executive Development Program at Whitfield Holdings. Hannah told her it had to be a mistake. She had no corporate experience. She had not worked in an office since a college internship years earlier. She had spent the last 2 years mopping floors. Eleanor told her that was exactly the point. She was not being offered charity. She was being offered a chance no one had ever given her before. Hannah said yes before she could talk herself out of it. Hannah's first morning at Whitfield Holdings felt, to her, like walking onto a movie set built for someone else's life. She wore a blazer she had bought secondhand 2 nights earlier, ironed twice out of nervousness. She was directed to a conference room where 12 other trainees sat, most of them fresh out of MBA programs from schools whose names alone opened doors. Within the first hour, whispers began. Someone had recognized her, the janitor from the news story that had quietly circulated online after a customer's phone video of the register incident surfaced. A young man across the table asked her, without much attempt at politeness, how someone with no corporate background had been selected for the program at all. Hannah did not have a polished answer ready. She simply told the truth. She said she did not entirely understand it herself yet. Among those observing quietly from the back of the room was a man named Marcus Reed, a senior associate who had spent 8 years climbing toward a vice president title he believed, with good reason, was finally within reach. He said nothing that first day. He simply watched Hannah Sullivan take her seat at the table he had spent nearly a decade trying to earn. It would be months before anyone understood exactly what that silence would eventually cost. The complaints reached Charlotte's office within a week. Several trainees had gone to human resources questioning how Hannah Sullivan had been selected for the program. A few had complained more directly, suggesting the entire hiring decision was a public relations stunt rather than a genuine business decision. Charlotte called a meeting, not to punish anyone, but to say something plainly, once, so it would never need repeating. She told the room that Hannah had been selected because she had demonstrated something no resume, no GPA, and no internship could prove. She reminded them of the register, the $12, the humiliation Eleanor had endured, and the choice Hannah had made without knowing who she was helping. She reminded them that when Hannah was punished for that choice, she had not complained, had not threatened legal action, had accepted the consequence with a dignity most executives twice her age had never demonstrated under far smaller pressure. Charlotte told the room that Whitfield Holdings did not measure people by their pedigree. It measured them by their choices. She said her door remained open to anyone who still had concerns. She suggested, evenly, that their time would be better spent proving they deserved their own seats at that table. Marcus Reed said nothing in that meeting either, but something in his posture, something in the way his jaw tightened as Charlotte spoke, suggested this was far from finished. Hannah worked harder than anyone in that program, not because she needed to prove she belonged, but because she genuinely did not yet believe she did. She stayed late reviewing case studies she did not fully understand, called her mother every night to describe her day in careful detail, and slowly, month by month, began to find something she had not expected to find in a place like this: competence. She led her first strategic review nervous and underprepared, by her own private assessment. But rather than pretend to know answers she did not have, she asked questions. She listened, genuinely, to people whose titles were far higher than her own. One senior colleague later told a reporter that what struck her most about Hannah in those early months was not ambition. It was attention. Hannah remembered names. She remembered small details about people's lives that even their own managers had forgotten. It was, oddly, the same quality that had made her hand $3.50 to a stranger months earlier. She had simply never had a stage large enough to show it before. 6 months into her time at Whitfield Holdings, Charlotte announced the company's largest proposal in a decade, a multi-billion-dollar development project backed by the Bennett Family Investment Group, intended to rebuild an underserved community on the edge of the city into affordable housing, schools, and a long-promised medical clinic. Whoever led this project successfully would very likely be positioned for a vice president title within the year. Marcus Reed had been waiting 8 years for a project exactly like this one. Charlotte stunned the room by naming Hannah Sullivan as project director. Several senior staff objected, respectfully but pointedly, noting that Hannah had been with the company only 6 months and had no experience managing a project of this scale. Charlotte told them she was certain of her choice. She said Hannah understood something the project needed more than technical polish. She understood, from lived experience, the communities this project was meant to serve. Marcus said nothing aloud, but privately, later that evening, alone in his office long after everyone else had gone home, he made a decision that would put everything Hannah had built at serious risk. Most developers, Hannah was told by a longtime resident named Otis during her first community meeting, arrive with blueprints already finished. They tell a neighborhood what is about to be built for them. They rarely ask what the neighborhood actually needs. Hannah asked anyway. The answers came slowly, cautiously, from residents who had learned through experience not to trust developers with easy promises. They spoke of schools that were falling apart, a hospital 40 miles away, jobs that did not pay enough to live on. One woman said simply that what her community needed most was dignity, to be treated as people, not as a project to be managed and photographed for a company's annual report. Hannah wrote every word down by hand. She did not promise anything that night. She told the room only that she had heard them, and that whatever she brought back to her company would reflect what she had heard, not what looked good on a slide. It was a small promise. It would prove to be one she was tested on sooner than she expected. The morning of the final presentation to the Bennett family investors arrived with the kind of quiet tension that precedes something going wrong long before anyone in the room can name it. Hannah had rehearsed her financial projections a dozen times. She knew every figure by memory. What she did not know was that, sometime after midnight, someone with access to the shared drive had quietly altered several of her numbers. She began her presentation confidently, the way she had practiced. But 3 slides in, something in the figures on the screen did not match what she remembered approving days earlier. She paused. She looked again. The numbers were wrong, not by a small margin that might be explained by rounding, but by a difference large enough to misrepresent the entire financial foundation of the project. Every experienced executive in that room understood the unwritten rule of high-stakes presentations. When you notice an error mid-presentation, in front of investors worth reputations and years of relationship building, you continue. You explain it quietly afterward. You do not stop. Hannah stopped anyway. She told the room, plainly, that there were errors in the financial projections in front of them, and that the figures did not match what she had personally prepared and approved. She said she could not, in good conscience, continue the presentation using numbers she believed to be inaccurate. She asked for 48 hours to correct them, and told the investors that if the corrected figures were not satisfactory, she would accept full responsibility herself. One of the senior Bennett representatives asked her directly whether she was suggesting someone had deliberately altered her presentation. Hannah answered honestly. She said she was saying only that these were not the numbers she had prepared. The lead investor told her, after a pause that felt far longer than it actually was, that in 20 years of evaluating proposals, he had never once watched a presenter stop their own presentation over a concern for honesty. He told her most companies, in her position, would have continued and hoped no one noticed. He told her that Whitfield Holdings did not need 48 hours. They needed her. The internal review took less than 3 days to trace the altered figures back to Marcus Reed's login credentials. He was called into Charlotte's office. He did not deny it. He told her, his voice breaking in a way 8 years of careful composure had never allowed before, that he had watched Hannah arrive with nothing and receive everything he had spent nearly a decade working toward. Hannah asked to speak with him afterward, alone. She told him she was not there to gloat, and she was not there to forgive him on anyone's behalf but her own. She told him plainly that he had not taken anything from her. He had given it away himself, the moment he chose sabotage over the harder, slower work of proving himself. Marcus asked her, quietly, why she was being kind to him after everything he had done. Hannah told him kindness was never something a person earns. It is something another person simply chooses to give. It was, in a way, the same answer she might have given Eleanor Whitfield 8 months earlier, standing at a checkout register with $12 in her pocket. Within a year, the Bennett project broke ground. Hannah stood at the edge of the ceremony, watching children from the neighborhood run across the freshly cleared lot, and understood, for the first time, that she had helped build something that would outlast every headline written about her. Charlotte approached her shortly afterward with a new proposal, a permanent division inside Whitfield Holdings dedicated entirely to community development and social impact, overseeing every project the company undertook going forward. She asked Hannah to lead it. Hannah hesitated, telling Charlotte she had only been with the company a little over a year. Charlotte reminded her, gently, that in that year she had accomplished more than most executives manage in a decade. Hannah accepted. The vote to confirm her as director came back nearly unanimous, with a single abstention from a senior board member who had once mentored Marcus Reed. Even he, privately, could not deny what Hannah had built. That night, Hannah told her mother the news over dinner. Carol Sullivan told her she was proud, not because of the title, she said, but because of the person her daughter had become while earning it. 1 year to the day after Hannah paid for Eleanor's bread, Eleanor and Charlotte arrived at Hannah's apartment once more, this time with a single envelope. Inside was a deed to a house bought and paid for in both Hannah and Carol Sullivan's names. No mortgage, no landlord, no fear of eviction. Hannah told them immediately that it was too much, that she could not accept it. Eleanor corrected her gently. She said it was not charity. It was an investment. Hannah had invested in her when she needed it most, with no expectation of anything in return. Now Eleanor was simply investing in her. Eleanor reminded her of the exact math, out loud, the way she had clearly rehearsed it. 1 year earlier, $3.50 had bought a stranger a loaf of bread. Today, that same choice had bought a mother and daughter a home. Hannah, through tears she no longer tried to hide, told her that it was not the money that had done it. It was the choice behind it. Eleanor agreed. She said the $12 had simply been where it began. By the time 5 years had passed, Hannah Sullivan had become one of the most recognized names in American community development, not because of a title, but because of what her story represented to people who had never met her. She personally visited every project site her division touched, insisting on speaking with the construction crews, the local residents, and, without exception, the custodial staff of every building she entered. A young reporter once asked her directly why she still made a habit of speaking with cleaning staff and janitors at every company event, despite her position. Hannah answered without hesitation. She said she was the cleaning staff. She had simply been given nicer clothes to wear since then. It was around this time that Eleanor and Charlotte approached her with news that would, once again, quietly rewrite the direction of her life. Charlotte told Hannah that she and her mother had been discussing the future of the company for months. Eleanor was ready to step fully back from daily operations. Charlotte would remain as chair of the board, but the company needed a chief executive, someone who understood Whitfield Holdings not merely as a business, but as a mission that extended beyond quarterly earnings. Hannah told them immediately that she was not ready. Eleanor answered the way she so often did, with a quiet certainty that left little room for argument. She told Hannah that nobody is ever fully ready for a moment like this. The only real question, she said, was whether Hannah was willing. Hannah agreed, on one condition. She told them she would accept the position only if she never had to stop speaking with the custodial staff, no matter how large the company grew. Eleanor told her that was not a condition at all. It was simply a promise the company intended to keep alongside her. On the 5th anniversary of the day she had spent her last $12 on a stranger, Hannah Sullivan walked, unannounced, into a grocery store not unlike the one where her story had begun. She found a young janitor there, mopping quietly near the front registers, largely unnoticed by the customers moving past her. Her name was Daniela Reyes. She had no idea who Hannah was at first. Hannah introduced herself simply, without her title, and asked Daniela how she was doing. Daniela admitted, cautiously, that the job barely covered her expenses, and that whatever dreams she once had felt increasingly out of reach. Hannah told her that dreams are not always expensive. Sometimes, she said, they simply require someone else to notice them first. She told Daniela about a scholarship and mentorship program through the Whitfield Foundation, available to anyone in a position like the one Hannah herself had once stood in. Daniela asked her, quietly, why a stranger would go out of her way to help someone she had never met. Hannah's answer was the same one she had given, in different words, to Marcus Reed years earlier, and to Eleanor Whitfield before that. She said someone she had never met once did the same for her, and that kindness, she had learned, always finds a way to return to where it started. Hannah Sullivan still keeps a single detail on her desk to this day, a small, laminated grocery receipt from a Tuesday morning years earlier, showing a purchase of $3.50. She keeps it not as a trophy, but as a reminder, not of what she gained that day, but of what she almost walked past without noticing. She has said, in interviews and in speeches to rooms far larger than the one she started in, that she does not consider her story proof that good deeds are always rewarded. She knows, better than most, that they are not. She considers it proof of something quieter, and in her own words, far more important, that goodness does not need to wait for the right moment, the right amount of money, or the right amount of security to matter. She had $12. It was supposed to last her the whole week. She gave $3.50 of it away without a second thought. And in doing so, without knowing it, she changed the direction of every year that came after.